Thank you very much, Joseph, for hosting and everyone else for coming and listening to the content I prepared. A couple of housekeeping items. I love spontaneity. I love the idea of this not being recorded so we can present more uncooked thoughts, as Joseph proposed on the presentation before. But for me personally, because I only speak like once or twice a year, it's not the best format because I like to have it recorded so I can make more value out of it. I can get more eyeballs, and I try to be as efficient as I can be. So that's why this has all these diva-like requirement that you have a microphone and a recording set. Now, I have committed to this event pretty late, like a few days ago, and I couldn't rehearse the presentation as much as I would like to be able to present it without a cheat sheet. So I have a cheat sheet here that I might be reading. This is because the topic of Ethereum cultural alignment is extremely delicate, and navigating it correctly requires lots of precision. So I wanted to make sure that what I'm going to say is really what represents me, and by extension POAP, because I could say that this doesn't represent POAP, but it wouldn't be true. Most of what I'm going to present, it also represents POAP vision. And I don't know whether good or bad that my co-founder is here too. So I also need to make sure that I'm representing comprehensively our views. And also, I am not too humble, so you will see a couple of things that I also wanted to make clear. Now, Remy is going to pass a slide. A quick presentation about me that you may have heard, but I'm spicing it up. I am nearly 40 years old. I've been born in Buenos Aires, and I'm an expert in Ethereum alignment. So when I was invited to this event, I was reluctant, but eventually I figured that I was a good fit, because this is, if I were to die today, Ethereum alignment might be one of the things that I have spent the most time, and my impact on Ethereum may have been the greatest impact I've had in the world, because before Ethereum, my work routine and the things I've done for the world were fairly inconsequential. I was mostly trying to survive. While on Ethereum, I have managed to build a couple things and support the growth of a thriving ecosystem from the very early, because I have been full-time on Ethereum since 2015. So it's quite relevant for me to say, okay, this is the thing that I'm not shy of saying that I am an expert. And it's not that I wanted to be an expert on Ethereum. It just happened organically. Same as Joseph was saying, I have recommended this venue. I didn't want to become an expert in Buenos Aires the way I am. Now I'm also very proud of being an expert in Buenos Aires. I just happened to be here, and one thing led to another. So it's kind of the same with Ethereum. In 2015, I was desperate for a change of environment of my lifestyle, because my prior lifestyle wasn't pleasant. And I landed on Ethereum. And the reason why I landed on Ethereum, it's not a coincidence, because I have been active in free and open source software communities for a long time. Like, I used to run the Linux user group in my local hometown, and I was an activist, and I've done install fests. So it's not that I care about measuring how organic the whole thing was, but my attraction to the Ethereum community was fairly natural and kind of a continuation of my career. Now, when I am a few months into Ethereum, I accidentally become, I don't know if it was accidentally, but I didn't decide this to happen. It just happened again. And I became a promoter. I became a preacher. I figured that Ethereum needed more people to understand its value proposition, that the community needed to grow. And because I was in Buenos Aires, a city that now you understand much better than before coming, the potential of me promoting Ethereum was very high impact, because I would go to the Bitcoin local community, and lots of people that were already up to speed with blockchains would hear about programmable blockchains. And that one thing has led to another, and it has gone pretty well. The amount of people I have impacted and I have taught about Ethereum has been massive. I have never stopped promoting Ethereum. It's kind of might be the handful of things that I never stopped doing in the last 10 years. Can you pass the slide? Since 2021, I started doing this kind of marketing gimmick, if you want, which is when you meet me in person, I give you a digital collectible like an Ethereum asset, an ERC721 token, that you can only get from me. And it's a very easy way to explain something you can do with Ethereum that you couldn't do with any other technology. And it's somewhat easy to understand because we also give you a patch, and everyone understands what's a patch. Like, it's a digital collectible that you use because you like the art or you want to remember something or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you just got a collectible from me that now you know it's immutable and indisputably authentic, and you could only get because you met me, and it has a cryptographic proof and all these things. So it was a very efficient way of promoting, not exactly Ethereum culture, but at least Ethereum tech. Actually, my interest was always more promoting Ethereum tech than Ethereum culture. Ethereum culture also has plenty of good things to promote, but I admit that the technology has drawn me more than the culture. It was the same with Linux. When I was in these free and open source communities, I care more about the tech than the cypherpunkism. When Cheeky Gorilla was asking who's the cypherpunk, I didn't raise my hand because although I love almost everything cypherpunks do, I don't consider myself a cypherpunk. Now, you can see on the top of the middle, there's over 7,000 people that had a handshake with me because that's kind of the minimal barrier for getting my POAP. Devcon X supposedly has 15,000 people, but most of them are locals. So more or less, I have met 1 out of 2 people in this industry, which is a massive achievement that I'm pretty proud. And you will see where I'm going with this because we are going to talk about Ethereum culture, not my personal professional achievements. And a good way to start talking about Ethereum culture is to talk about a lesser known fact. Some people know this, especially all those that are hardcore POAP collectors. The reason why I started POAP, the primary reason, there were a couple, but the primary reason was to promote Ethereum. Because in 2018, I was 3 years into Ethereum full time. I was fairly happy with my knowledge because I was feeling that I was plateauing. Like, after not being a computer scientist, I'm a high school dropout for those that didn't know. Not being a tech person, not being an engineer, I found quickly kind of a ceiling on how far I could go. Like, if I wasn't going to be a programmer or a protocol developer or something of those kind of big stuff, I couldn't do a big impact on the ecosystem. So I was feeling that I needed something better. And something else that happened in 2018, we were on one of those classic cycles, like now classic cycles. At that time, weren't classic. And the prices were on the 2-digit range, like $90 or so, down from $1,400. And the overall sentiment in the whole industry was negative. We had what I personally call the Bitcoin media conglomerate. These were several media companies of that time funded by Bitcoin-heavy companies. And the Bitcoin media conglomerate was successfully installing the narrative that Ethereum had failed, that Bitcoin was the only asset that made sense holding, and it was the true store of value, and they said plenty of things. And they very successfully convinced many, more or less skeptical and some idealistic, and others, and of course people that were informed, that Ethereum may have been very interesting, but it wasn't going anywhere because it was too complex, or because it's a scam, or the pre-mine. They have a whole bunch of reasons, some more legit than others. But they successfully installed that concept because they weren't totally wrong. The Ethereum development community had fallen behind promises. Like in 2018, switching to proof of stake was looking little less than a miracle. Like, you would see the repos and you would try to run the clients and the testnets, and anyone that wasn't opinionated on blockchains, like a strict professional view on the state of the software, could easily make a point saying this is never going to work. Eventually it happened, and I think we more or less agree that the team that has made the merge possible has made this impressive achievement of changing the engines of a plane without landing it, like while on air. Now, in this context, I asked myself, because I found the harassment that I got by the Ethereum people, the Bitcoin people, and the other competing ecosystems, because there were many like EOS and Polkadot and many that never became a thing, or they might be lingering around. They made this very correct point that in 2018 and early 19, Ethereum was spending a massive amount of energy and resources, and because proof of work and other reasons, and everything it has produced was tokens, which supposedly Bitcoin could do, and financial fraud and Ponzi scheme and some experiments, but there were no dApps. And we were all talking about, yeah, you would have this work computer, and in hindsight, like right now, this is very easy to say, but at that time, I found myself cornered as a promoter of Ethereum culture and technology, and it was very uncomfortable. So I somewhat, I don't want to make myself a hero because I don't think it was a heroic act. I was just doing what organically made sense for me doing. As an Ethereum promoter that found itself very frustrated because there were very strong points that I couldn't defend, I figured if Ethereum had a proper application that does something that you couldn't do with any other technology that makes sense, then I will be able to promote it more effectively. So I recruited a couple of friends that were also invested in Ethereum, one computer scientist, another engineer, and we started brainstorming what was a very ambitious prompt. This is something that I have to read because it's very precise. And I asked them, we met in person here in Buenos Aires, what's a dApp that we can build that showcases Ethereum as a platform that can solve real-world problems? And then I make it harder, and I say, so it's useful, because there were some experimental dApps that do little thingies that you could argue, but they needed to be compelling arguments, like very strong things that I could say, you can do this with Ethereum. So I say, it has to be non-speculative, so it can't be something that you use for making money or that people use for making money. So everything near C20 tokens was pretty much out of the question. Ideally, it is non-financial, but that was kind of an optional constraint. Then it has to be regulatory compliant, because around that time in 2018, there were plenty of things like Mario Havel type things that, with Ethereum, you could do these extremely exciting things, so you are not surveilled, and those kind of things that if you were here when Mario presented, that needs no explanation because he made extremely clear what's the world he wants to live in. And I kind of like that mindset, but we're like, we need to come up with something that they can't counter-argue me saying, okay, but you are exploiting a legal loophole. So whatever we were going to build had to be something that was not contested in any jurisdiction. And the third one, that it's maybe the most obvious, but up to these days even, it's still quite a challenge. It has to be impossible to build without any programmable blockchain like Ethereum. Because I really wanted to prove Ethereum worthy. I didn't want to prove that if you do a decentralized database, that it's trustless and immutable and read-only or read somewhat. And that was a classical, at that time, those blockchain skepticals were very commonly say, everything you can build with a blockchain except trustless money, what Bitcoin did, you could build with non-blockchain databases. And they were more or less right. So that part of the prompt, like it has to use Ethereum in a way that if Ethereum wouldn't exist, you can't make it work. That also made the prompt harder. We did some brainstorming, but I have to admit, when I proposed this prompt, I already knew what I wanted to build. But for recruiting my friends, I kind of needed to give them some headspace so they could do their own journey towards why POAP was what made sense building. We do this brainstorming. I convince them that I want to build this. And the value proposition that we said, it's helping the average person easily preserve their memories. Because in 2018, everything blockchain was extremely primitive, but consumer technology, like the Silicon Valley tech type company, was already fairly well established. Like in 2018, people already knew social networks. They understood the challenges with large global scale behemoths that operate all the cloud computing. There were plenty of stickers that were very fun, like the cloud is someone else's computer. So the idea that if you give people true ownership of assets that represent things they've done on their lives, like weddings and birthday parties and meetups and awards, was something that was very easy to explain to the common man. Like the average person, because remember, as an Ethereum promoter, my main interest was promoting this to people that didn't know Ethereum. So I had to say, where do you store your pictures? And some may have like a network attached storage at home, but that wasn't for the common man, like having a NAS at home. It's a massive burden. And everyone else, all their pictures of their family members and such, they either had on the cloud, and they knew that it's not safe. They still know that it's not safe. And they had no idea that there could be a globally distributed database on which they could have these little records. So that's the value proposition of POAP. We launched in 2019 in December, and although we didn't win the hackathon, and that was pretty heartbreaking, fuck December. Maybe I should cut this from the video because I love December. I am like one of the 5 people that never missed one December. But although we didn't win the hackathon, I am very happy because we got lots of people to mint, and December had lots of Bitcoin people that when they saw what I was building, they were like, okay, maybe there is something that you can do with Ethereum that really justifies its existence. It doesn't justify the massive footprint it has environmental-wise, but at least this it's better than whatever the media is saying. So that made me very happy. And I continue trying to make it better. My co-founders at the time abandoned it quickly because they were busy with their lives and they weren't as passionate as I was about all that. Or maybe they were, but it wasn't realistic. And you really had to be crazy for doing what I was doing. And I've done it. At that time, the way we built the application was the way we thought the application had to be built. And remember that there weren't prior applications like, MakerDAO was a thing, but it was about to launch or not launch. So we made it extremely Ethereum aligned. Just because, and at that time it wasn't even called Ethereum aligned, it was like, you just do it the way Ethereum is, like hardcore cypherpunk. And if only I knew, honestly, if only I knew what I was signing up for. But again, there was no prior art, and we've done whatever we could on a hackathon of 48 hours. Once I launch and I go to a couple events, I realize our idealistic dreams of permissionlessness and immutability and censorship resistance and all these cypherpunk things that we continue to promote quickly collided with the harsh reality of serving consumers. Serving consumers with any kind of application, it's a massive challenge. In the VC world, there are 2 categories these days: those building B2B SaaS, which are kind of a dime a dozen, and those building consumer experiences. And those are all kind of like kamikazes. Building a consumer experience that works at global scale, it's a kamikaze mission. I didn't know this because, again, I wasn't planning on building a consumer application. I was just building a showcase for Ethereum. As I was saying, our priors of how an application should be built immediately crashed very hard towards the reality. It was impossible to get POAP adopted by anyone that's not as hardcore as Mario Havel. And we love Mario, and he's a great adopter of us, but we were building this for the common man, which he is not.
Thank you.
So this is kind of a shock, but not. For people on the spectrum, POAP was great. But we were after something greater, because also people on the spectrum were already fairly well Ethereum pilled. So I wasn't making much progress. Now, can you pass the slide, Remy? And just so you know, we are almost there. So we are about to wrap up. When I start thinking, how do we make this go further than people on the spectrum? And nothing of this had a name. It was all discovery. Like, it was mostly stumbling into walls. I learned this thing that it is very well researched, that consumers have a divergence between their stated preference, what they say they want, and their revealed preference, what they actually want. And at the time, it was extremely hard to understand. It took me years, and I expect even to understand more about this in the future. But now, this divergence is extremely clear. We all talk about this every day. The Trustless Manifesto is pretty much about this. And I'm going to read it, although you have read it already. Supposedly, we all love data sovereignty because we don't want to be rug pulled, and we want privacy, and we want sovereignty. Like, who doesn't want sovereignty? But more than that, we want the benefits of delegated custodianship. I think out of Mario and a handful more, I doubt that people want to be their own banks. And even if they say they want now, as they get wealthier or older, or they have children, they realize that being your own bank, having sovereignty over your digital assets, comes with such large weight on your back that you may accept doing delegated custodianship. And it's not right or wrong. It is what it is. Immutability, it's one of those that used to be highly contested at the time. Everything had to be immutable. These days, almost every major DeFi or non-DeFi application use amendable smart contracts that you can upgrade. Some may have security councils or not, but this one is not too contested. You know, when POAP migrated to an upgradable smart contract, we got a little backlash from the hardcore crypto people, like, what if one day you want to steal my collectibles? But we got so much appreciation from the people that accidentally put a letter wrong and have missed their collectible. Also because we have worked so hard for making these little collectibles to be assets that people appreciate, that the many times things went wrong, either because they got hacked, or their wallet stopped working, or the RPC node didn't actually send the transaction, although it looked like it did. So again, switching from an immutable smart contract to an upgradable smart contract has been one of the main things we've done for facilitating adoption. Permissionlessness and content moderation is a problem that we have today and we haven't solved, and it's a major challenge. And again, it clashes heavily with Ethereum culture, because Ethereum culture, like one of the main values, if they would exist, it's permissionlessness. Honestly, in the world we live in, with social norms and overarching regulators, a fully permissionless consumers arguably cannot exist. It's just fundamentally impossible. You need to abide by laws. Amin Soleimani, that might be the most hardcore Mario-style guy, has built a new Tornado Cash that prides on having, somewhat transaction intelligence, know your transaction. So they check against chain analysis and some other reported criminal addresses databases. That guy, I don't think you can find a most hardline trustlessness promoter, and he has caved in. Can you imagine how that was for us that we do digital collectibles? So currently POAP doesn't let you upload pornography, but it goes beyond than that, because we also don't let people upload Israeli flags on fire or Palestinian flags on fire or any flag on fire. But that also comes at a massive cost, because there was one time that we blocked some people from Iran because of sanctions compliance. And the backlash we have suffered from the community was months of pain, of people calling us names, very ugly names, because we didn't let someone from Iran use POAP for what was literally sanctions avoidance, because it was a POAP for a Twitter space about how to avoid sanctions using crypto. And that I found extremely offensive. Like, we had some of the highest priests of Ethereum calling us for the demise of POAP because we complied with things that we needed to comply, so we wouldn't go to jail. Content moderation, I guess it sells itself. Composability, it's one that's more obscure, but it's also a massive source of pain for POAP. POAP does a very lightweight use of the chain. So it's not like our composability is not great. If you want to do something extremely sophisticated with a smart contract based on POAP, you have to use an API. Again, we have been called names so many times by the most hardcore Ethereum alignment people. We have been literally punished because of this, and very harsh punishment. The Ethereum alignment compliance officers, to call them somehow, they can be very mean and they can be very destructive. And again, it was what it was, and we need it because we were here to promote using blockchains for preserving memories, not so much to sacrifice ourselves for an impossible cause. So almost everything, if you ever want to integrate POAP, you have to use an API. Now that writing in blockchains has gotten extremely cheap, maybe we go back to composability one day, but the point I wanted to make is that this compromise was fundamental for survival. Decentralized storage and content delivery networks. It's funny that I have written this a couple days before Cloudflare has gone down, but the Cloudflare outage this Tuesday may have been the worst day of the year in POAP. We had DevCon activations that we had planned for months, for which some corporate partners have paid tens of thousands of dollars, and because our dependency on Cloudflare, we have failed. And although it wasn't our fault and our partners are not calling their money back, what they have bought wasn't delivered. They had the people waiting there, they couldn't mint the POAP. It was an extremely painful situation, and I still believe that the value Cloudflare provided has very well offset the pain it has cost today, because Cloudflare costs very little money, like $100, and the quality of service they propose, it's impossible to match with any decentralized option. Now again, we have been called names on Twitter, in social media this week, and that was extremely fucking painful and inconsiderate from the people that done it. I think, in a way, if this talk wasn't about promoting Ethereum culture the way I do it, the way POAP does it, it could be about empathy. But I'm not seeking for empathy. I wish we had it, but it is what it is, and we live with that. And the latest one, I don't think anyone has to express much. There is a balance between freedom and comfort, and you all have your own personal preferences. And in the case of POAP, we are very proud how we have eroded, bent, or outright ignored the inherited culture that we have acquired throughout 10 years, so we could thrive in our mission of using blockchains for promoting the preservation of culture. And I think that's pretty much it. I hope you like it. Oh, and there is a POAP for attending this talk. If you pass, you are gonna get a digital collectible that remember that you were in this pretty room that I have sourced for its brag. It's not this one. This is if you don't have the mobile app, but also we are still very conscious of our hardcore cypherpunk people. So even if you don't have the mobile app, you can still mint. Because the mobile app doesn't work in Graphene OS, which is a massive pain. And I wish you could know how much we have spent trying to reverse engineer it, but still Graphene is not as mature as we would need for an app to work. So if you don't have Graphene, you should use the POAP app. If you are Graphene, you will just use a web browser. And now we can go to the next app, but I also need my phone. And in the mobile app, you can just go to Mint and type a secret word, which is balance 2025. And it will mint, and if you don't have the mobile app, you can just scan that QR code. That's gonna work for like 5 minutes. So if you leak it on an online group, hopefully the farmers won't find it fast enough. And thank you everyone for coming to my city. That has been something we've been trying to make it happen for very long. And in a way, I am kind of happy that it happened now and not the other attempts we got, because I couldn't have presented it. Like if we wanted Devcon to come here for the first time, I think in 22 when it went to Bogota, and then when we went to Amsterdam, and every time we have tried to bring Ethereum here. But honestly, now that we are here now, I think this was a good timing. Things happen for a reason. So I feel that we all came now and on this form. So,